ruling is set to be made on Monday after the latest Wagatha Christie court hearings, in which it was alleged Rebekah Vardy described Coleen Rooney as a CT. When Mrs. Rooney, 35, posted on her private Instagram about damage to her car, Mrs. Vardy, 39, messaged her PR agent, "She's a nasty bitch and would love to leak those stories," it was claimed by Mrs. Rooney's legal team on Tuesday. However, yesterday, Mrs. Vardy's barrister denied the nasty bitch comment was about Mrs. Rooney. Mrs. Rooney, in these latest preliminary hearings held at the Royal Courts of Justice over 2 days, is calling for Caroline Watt, Mrs. Vardy's PR agent, to be included in the case, as she leaked information, it is alleged, on Mrs. Vardy's instruction or her approval. Ms. Watt is accused of misusing private information and a breach of GDPR. The wife of former England footballer Wayne Rooney is also applying for her defence to be amended based on the WhatsApp messages which have come to light, and is also making a claim for further information to be disclosed. A ruling is expected on Monday. Mr. Sherborne claimed Ms. Watt's phone had fallen into the sea after a boat she was on hit a wave, only a short time after the court ordered that the phone should be specifically searched. Around the same time, it was alleged media files from Mrs. Vardy's WhatsApp conversation with Ms. Watt also disappeared, along with the backups, whilst in the process of exporting it to her solicitors. Mrs. Vardy is suing Mrs. Rooney for libel over an Instagram post she made in October 2019 in which she claimed Mrs. Vardy's account was behind a number of stories which had appeared in The Sun. Mrs. Rooney set up her own sting operation to catch whoever had been passing on information from her private page to the press, leading her to be labelled Wagatha Christie. Mrs. Vardy has vehemently denied being involved in the leaking of the stories, insisting a number of people had access to her Instagram page. In one WhatsApp conversation presented to the court, Mrs. Vardy and Ms. Watt discuss Mrs. Rooney's tweet about the story involving damage to her car, which was posted on her private Instagram. Mrs. Vardy asks her PR agent if she's seen the tweet, to which Ms. Watt says, "Such a victim. Poor Coleen. And it wasn't someone she trusted. It was me." Mr. Sherborne claimed that Mrs. Vardy and Ms. Watt concocted a plan in case Mrs. Rooney found out they had been leaking the messages, planning to say it was an unknown user, and other people have access to her passwords. It was also alleged that when Mrs. Rooney's infamous post blaming Mrs. Vardy's account was published, Mrs. Vardy messaged her publicist, saying, "That's war." The PR agent replied, "You will have to say that you don't speak to anyone about her, but that recently your Insta has even been following people you don't follow, and she should come to you first and ask you about it. So you could have changed your password. Just say you have allowed a company to access it for sponsored posts and a former social media agency that you worked with too." Following that massage, Mrs. Rooney's lawyer claimed that Mrs. Vardy then contacted Mrs. Rooney, saying, "On my kids' lives, I have never spoken to anyone about you." She then went on to say the exact words her publicist told her to, Mr. Sherborne said. On Monday, Hugh Tomlinson, representing Ms. Vardy, said Mrs. Rooney has relied on selective and incomplete WhatsApp messages to support her argument, while ignoring the messages which demonstrate Mrs. Vardy was not responsible. He pointed to an exchange on February 6, where she's shocked that Mrs. Rooney suspects her of leaking stories. Mrs. Vardy messaged Ms. Watt, "She thinks it's me that's been doing stories on her. Of all the people on her Instagram FFS." She then goes on, "That CT needs to get over herself." Then adding, Someone on her Instagram regularly sells stories on her though X. Ms. Watt responds, "Because she is private she can remove you as a follower and it stops you from seeing her page," to which Mrs. Vardy says, "What a joke. All I've ever been is nice to her though. Even when Wayne was being a CTX." Mr. Tomlinson also pointed to messages where Mrs. Vardy speculates that it is Mrs. Rooney's own PR team leaking information to The Sun, adding, "I really can't see anyone being that a with selling stories on her." The barrister said that Mrs. Vardy saying she would love to leak stories, suggests she didn't. Ian Helm, representing Ms. Watt, said her denials are clear and consistent. He asked for the court to reject the claim brought against her, but added if it was to be heard it must be separately as it would not be fair on Ms. Watt or realistic for the trial to take place in May. Mr. Helm raised questions about the timing of Coleen Rooney's attempted claim against her, saying it was not necessary in order to vindicate Mrs. Rooney's rights. Mr. Sherborne said Mrs. Vardy had the means, opportunity and motive to leak stories about her. He told the High Court, Mrs. Vardy and her sidekick Ms. Watt had a clear hostility or animus towards Mrs. Rooney. They had the means to leak the stories, they had the access to Mrs. Rooney's private Instagram account, indeed at times they were the only people that did.